Because without people like Carmel taking the decisions to act and do things like this, none of us would have any hope at all, so thank you. I mean, that last presentation was absolutely fantastic. If I can give a plug for Professor Louise Robinson, who has just presented on her work. She's a GP at Newcastle University, and she has just done a community palliative care. So we are getting there, but we have the barriers of the GPs not diagnosing with dementia because there's nothing can be done, and then we have the barriers of not being given access to palliative care because, well, you don't have cancer. Now, if I can just give you a couple of not statistics, but some information. This year, 2018, it's going to become globally a $1 trillion health issue. It's listed, dementia is listed by the World Health Organization as the 5th highest cause of death for women worldwide and is the leading cause of death in the UK. Now, women make up 2/3 of the people diagnosed with dementia, and we also make up 2/3 of the people caring for those with dementia. We are disproportionately affected by gender. Now, I don't know why that is, and I don't know what to do about it, but I do know that it's going to disadvantage me. It's going to disadvantage my working life, my pension rights, the money I get when I have my pension. I do know that when I reach pension age, I'm going to be more likely to have dementia than if I were a man. I'm going to be more likely to have the non-communicable diseases that the World Health Organization and World Health Alliance are talking about, they were talking about last week. And I think that is because we are disproportionately affected in the social care side of things. We have to do it all. Now, I live in a rural community. Our community is less than 10,000, because in Wales the criteria is less than 10,000. This morning we heard that in Scotland the criteria for a rural community is less than 3,000. I didn't know I was in a rural community till I looked the figures up. But what hope have those that really do live in rural communities, those women that are out in the middle of nowhere looking for their father, their brother, their husband? We need all of you to take action, to carry on doing what you're doing, to buy the raffle tickets, to come in, to these meetings, and to lobby our governments, national, local, and international, that actually dementia is a $1 trillion business and they need to take it extremely seriously. Now, who are we and why are we here? Well, we live in Wales, and Chris and I had been married for 18 years when he started going through the dementia diagnosis process. And we'd self-diagnosed his scattiness and his bad-tempered as being either a midlife crisis, at least he wasn't going out buying Porsches and things, or it was a result of his emphysema. Because we self-diagnosed, we hit Dr. Google, and that's what we came up with. A lack of oxygen to the brain, making him very scatty. We went to the GP, and she went, that's not emphysema. And so the diagnosis started. And it was 2 years for us. It took 13 months for Chris to get a diagnosis of dementia. And we didn't mind that because we didn't want a rushed diagnosis. I didn't want dementia. I actually prayed for a brain tumour. And I am ashamed to say that because a brain tumour gave me help, they could operate. There was nothing they could do for dementia. That was my ignorance and my stigma on dementia. And why would I have anything else? I knew nothing about dementia. It hadn't entered our world until my husband got a diagnosis. And when the diagnosis is given, as Anne said this morning, it's given to the whole family. We're all affected. As Chris's symptoms had been noticed by all of us, it affected all of us. And when the diagnosis came, this wasn't something Mummy and Daddy could fix. Normally that's our job. We fix things, we get over it, and we get on with life, and everything goes back to normal. This was a whole shift in the family dynamic, family mindset. We all became carers to Chris. Me, our 5 children, and the youngest of whom was 14 years old, and Chris's sister, who lives just a few doors away. It became a whole family illness. And when someone is ill, we wrap them in cotton wool, we put them to bed, we love them better, we nurse them better, we feed them chicken soup, particularly here in Ireland, where you have the best soup in the world. And then they get better and things go back to normal. And that's what I did, that's what I tried to do, that's what my job was. my ignorance, I didn't know anything else except my husband needed to be made better. And that didn't work. And I took over doing most things. If he had a difficulty, I took over doing it. And in doing this, I disabled him. I disabled him far more than the dementia ever did. And I did it out of love and out of kindness and out of having nothing else to do. So now, instead of finding out if Chris has a problem, we find out what the real problem is. And in our case, Chris couldn't make a cup of tea. Bad thing in our family. But it turned out that it wasn't making the cup of tea, the whole process. It was opening the lid of the kettle. He couldn't grasp the kettle. It was a bit awkward to open. So what do we do about that? Well, I went out and I bought him a push-button kettle, and he can now make me a lovely cup of coffee. I don't take milk anymore because that part of the process has gone, but hey, I'm sure that's going to help my health in whichever way. So that's what we did. We re-abled Chris. Instead of disabling him, instead of saying, you can't do that anymore, stopping him doing things, maybe it's because I'm a bit lazy, I don't know. But what we did was we found out ways around the problems to re-able Chris, to give him his dignity, his autonomy, his independence, and actually to take some of the stress off me, so I don't go under that carer burden that Dr. Google told me I was going to have. I was going to become depressed, he was going to hit me, he was going to become all sorts of dreadful things. Dr. Google has its place, but we actually need real education and support from our governments, our councils, our social services, our Alzheimer's societies. And this is how we've continued. We hit a problem and we look ways to overcome it. And by overcoming the hurdles, that trips dementia up. To me, that's a win against dementia. Because ultimately, Chris is going to die with dementia. He may not die because of it, but he'll definitely die with it. So I like these little wins. And it's not easy. He was diagnosed at 50. We have a mortgage, university fees, a family home to run. But we are very, very lucky because we're in a good position to be in a bad position. We're self-employed, and I have had to take over running the whole of the business. But we're quite lucky because we can do it from the end of a phone. And our respite, our Older People's Commissioner for Wales, has put out a report just 2 weeks ago called Rethinking Respite, which is exactly what you're doing. Our respite is coming away in our motorhome, and we're extremely lucky that we've been invited to Ireland. And this, as well as this being work, is our respite. This is Rethinking Respite. It's giving us both a break. And sometimes we don't want respite with one person in a care home or at the golf course or with somebody else. We want respite together. Take us out of our home environment, and that's respite. For us, it's not for everybody. But it does have a financial impact because Chris is still under pension age. We have to pay people to do the work that Chris used to do. But I have learned new skills. I can now change a lock because our business is in property. But it doesn't make Chris feel any better or any good about himself. The word he once used was useless. How does that make me feel? We know how he feels. Now, it doesn't happen overnight, but as Chris has become less able to do things, the family has seamlessly and silently glided in, and we do things for him. We just do it automatically. Whatever the task that dementia has taken away, we do for him. Our daughter, the 14-year-old daughter, who's now 20, she had to learn not to answer back. Now, she was 14 years old. It's her job to give out to her parents. But she decided not to go to university, to stay at home and to support us both, whilst working locally to us. A decision that will affect the rest of her life and her financial situation and her pension later on. One son hasn't been able to handle the condition, and he stays away because he can't handle what he perceives his dad may be or may become. And that's hard. We worry about the future for him as well, because what happens when it may be too late for him to reach his father, to reach out to him? These are all the dynamics and the emotions and what's going on inside every single family in Ireland, in the UK, in the world that is affected by dementia, whether we live in an urban environment or a rural environment. And the other children, they're just getting on with it, and they step in when we need them to, because we are a team, and our family is a team united against dementia. We don't look after Chris, but we look out for him. When I'm not available for whatever reason, the children will take time off work and step into my shoes for the day. But this also gives them the opportunity to tap the time to share with their father, which in other circumstances they probably wouldn't get or make the time to do. So we adapt and we concentrate on the positives in our life because it works for us. There's so much negativity around dementia. We could easily fall into the pit of despair. We did, I did, and I'm very fortunate that Chris was the one that pulled me out of that pit before I was swallowed by it. We have to look for the positives, and that's not to say it is not a negative illness, that they're not. We do know what the end may be, but we will get there soon enough. Let's concentrate on the positives and what we can do now, what we can do for each other and for each other as a community, whatever that community may be, whether it's the community of the golf course or the community of the village or the community of the Rotary Club, or is it the Lions in Ireland? Whatever that community is, we need to rally together and to pull together because we can't do it alone. Now Chris presents very well. You'll see him present in a few minutes. But he no longer ties his shoelaces. He can't make a cup of coffee to the same standard he used to. He doesn't cross roads anymore because, well, he does, but he really shouldn't. Nor can he find his way around. Handling money is a problem, and as are trust issues. If Chris is really sure that something has gone missing, he has to believe me when I say, no, it hasn't stolen, Chris, we will find it. And all of this puts the burden of responsibility on whoever is supporting Chris at that point in time. Because Chris is not the burden. It's the unshared responsibility that burdens. And this is why our services are so important. We need that burden shared, and it's the burden of responsibility. Not the burden of looking after my husband, of caring for my husband, which I promised to do 24 years ago. Now, when the mess hits the fan, then it does all fall to me. And I need support to actually fix the things. I set our chimney on fire when Chris was in hospital. We had to call the fire brigade. The kids put it on Facebook. I'm mortally embarrassed. But actually, we made light of that. The house didn't burn down, thankfully. Chris is in hospital on his iPad, finds out that we've got the fire engines at our house. But those are the things that really hit me, those unexpected disasters that come and trip us up, and that's when I really need the support of my community, wherever that community is. And we do all this now with less help from Chris than he used to give us before. Chris was the fixer in our family before. If there was a problem, he fixed it. He fixed it so beautifully, I didn't even know what a good fixer he was. But now, I'm just firefighting. I'm just trying to keep on top of things. And that in itself is a huge shift in dynamic. It takes a massive shift in mindset to go from the one who lent on Chris to the one now leaned upon. For both of us. Chris is the man of the household. He doesn't want to have to lean on me, but we do. We are a team. And being the one that's now leaned upon, I've had no formal interview. I've got no job description. I've got no training. We're thrown straight into the role, ready, whether we are ready or not. We have to learn, we as carers have to learn quickly, or else we go down just as fast with dementia as if we were the one with the diagnosis. But it is what it is, and we get on with it as best we can. And I am told what a great job I'm doing. I'm told, you're doing fantastic, you're doing a fantastic job. But it's a job I didn't apply for. It's one I am woefully underqualified and unskilled for. And it's one I certainly wouldn't employ me for. But don't listen to that in case you ever need a job, Pat. So dementia, more than any other disease I know, is very, very much about all of us. The person with the diagnosis, the family, the friends, the professionals who want to do as good a job as possible. The researchers, because without the research, we will never get anywhere, be it in social care, be it in psychosocial interventions, or be it that elusive cure. And as Chris so often says, when we're doing these talks, there is nothing about us without all of us. We're all in it together.
Absolutely.
But if my family is given the skills that it needs, the support in place to catch us before we fall, if we're given the training to build upon our own skill set, the counselling to build our emotional resilience, and if we are given the practical tools that I need to manage my husband's condition, to teach me how to lift him from the floor, or move him from a chair to a bed, or to feed him when he's no longer able to hold a fork, if you can give me the solid foundations I need, if you can do this in your communities, wherever the need is, then I can be the cornerstone that hold our whole family structure together. Somebody said earlier about, we call it proactive, not reactive. And somebody said earlier, we need proaction and not reaction to the crisis. Because we can't do this alone. We need you to teach me and people like me what we need to know, because we don't know what we don't know. What we need to know, I need to know what it is for me to care. To care for Chris, to care for our family, to care for me, so that our family do not become another set of statistics lost to dementia. Then that will be our cure for dementia. Thank you.
So bad, did she? Yes, I can talk. I'm 57 years old now, and as you heard, I'm self-employed. We've got a property rental business, which, as you heard, sadly Jayne has to manage on her own these days. But I also used to own and manage a motorcycle shop, a custom motorcycle shop. I've ridden to bike shows and events all over the UK and Europe with my wife and friends. I've got 5 children and 2 grandchildren. You now know more about me than anyone else did. During and after my diagnosis, I've got a diagnosis of mixed dementia. That's vascular and Alzheimer's. It took 13 months to get this diagnosis, but I didn't mind because I wanted a correct diagnosis, not a rushed one. And I wanted a reason for the behaviour and the problems that I was experiencing. I'm also living with emphysema and arthritis, 2 more illnesses you can't always see. Jayne says I'm just greedy. But it does show that you must see the person and not just the illness. You shouldn't make assumptions. And dealing with a life-changing diagnosis is difficult. It's life-changing. But not just for the person, but also for all those around me, my family, my friends. It also affects them, like Jayne said. The diagnosis is given to everyone. It's shared by everyone around me. At first, it's easier not to talk about your diagnosis, and that's probably the worst thing you can ever do. The stigma and misconceptions, added with a lack of understanding, keeps you very quiet. It's easier to be quiet. An awful lot of people feel embarrassed and ashamed, and out of ignorance, so was I, so were we. But by coming out, as it were, and talking about dementia, having honest conversations really did and do make a difference. By hiding away and not having these conversations, we're perpetuating the very stigma that we all complain about. We're helping that stigma and misconceptions. And nobody should have the added stress of keeping secrets. We didn't have any idea of what to do after our diagnosis. As I said, we were embarrassed, but what's really sad is that we were both ashamed. We were ashamed of what we thought we were going to go through, what we thought was going to happen. We had no understanding of this dementia that had become a dark hole in our lives, which had then led to this resounding fear. And I wasn't just living with dementia, I was also living with a vast amount of guilt. And it's this guilt that actually led to depression. And depression and dementia so often goes hand in hand. And it was guilt about how my diagnosis was going to affect not just myself, but my wife and children. I felt I'd really let them down. I'd altered their entire future. The conversation about my diagnosis, its effects, progression, and future needs was the best thing that we ever did. Not realising what a welcome ally that conversation actually became. And that honesty would be so helpful to all of us. It's the old saying that sharing is caring. And if you want or need support and understanding, you have to be honest. You have to come out. You have to ask for help. And this needs more promoting and more facilitation, pre and post-diagnosis. But it wasn't all about me. It's very difficult, like I said, for everyone around me, including my children. No counselling was ever mentioned or offered. For anything life-changing, counselling should be there. It should be one of the first things you access, along with information and education. And we were all felt like we were grieving, and I wasn't even dead yet. But I consider myself to be the lucky one in my diagnosis. You've got to see the silver linings, haven't you? And you've got to use humour. And people say, really? Well, yeah, actually, if I live long enough, because anything can happen to anyone at any time, I'll eventually forget. My family will never have that luxury. The diagnosis experience, when it came, is and was absolutely negative. I felt like I was being judged and they were putting the black caps on. I was just about to be hanged or something. I was given my welcome pack, which was full of irrelevant information, and actually when I looked in it, it gave me more worry and fear. It had things like diabetes and Parkinson's and all these different dementias. So scary, so scary. And I was advised about what I can't do, I won't be able to do, and I'll never do. And I was also advised, quite rightly, to get my affairs in order, make a will, sort out my power of attorney. But at that period, I didn't want to do anything. I had no value, no worth, and I felt like I was a burden. And it's this lack of knowledge again. Knowledge is power. And we were all filled with so much negativity, worrying about something we knew nothing about. And it's this worrying about something you know nothing about that creates so much fear. So it just shows how delivery of a diagnosis can be so disempowering, as well as the diagnosis itself. We all need to know about how the family carers need to do. We all need to know about self-management for those that are given the diagnosis. And then this would make such a difference to the postcode lottery that exists all over, everywhere. It would give people back confidence and self-worth that one needs to carry on living and adapting. And if you've noticed, I've never said living well once yet, because I don't actually like that phrase. I think whoever come up with that phrase didn't have dementia. Because who lives well? Put your hand up. Who lives well every day? Exactly. And with a life-changing illness, that's more added stress that's put onto you. Come on, Chris, you can live well. I can't. But I can live with dementia, and that's what the emphasis has to be on, I think. And it's not all gloom and doom, as my daughter says to me all the time. We do still have a family life. We do still enjoy life. But you've got to be given that permission to carry on living. And it's that permission that comes with the knowledge of what you're actually experiencing, of what you're going to experience. And then you can actually almost embrace the life-changing illness. And Jayne actually, as she said, disabled me even more by doing so much for me out of love. But what I really needed was enabling. I just needed supporting. I just needed someone to look out for me. We walked into the memory clinic where I got diagnosed, husband and wife. And we came out patient and carer. Absolutely life-changing. My 14-year-old daughter was about to become my babysitter. She couldn't look after herself.
Still can't.
Still can't. So the services that are out there need to be better signposted, we need to be better informed, and they need to be stage appropriate, not just age appropriate. I think it's more about stage than age. And we have to take this all into account. We need to work with the very people, the experts by experience, the carers, the supporters, the families, the people diagnosed, to produce all these services. And that will make such a difference. Do with, not for. Over the time, all this information that we sadly lacked, that caused such a problem in our lives, we now know such a lot now. And it's gave all of us a new life. It's not a better life, it's a new life. It's a different life, but it's still a life. There's so many worse illnesses out there. And when I say this sometimes, people really, I would rather, if I had to choose, I would choose dementia over MS, motor neuron paralysis. There are so many other illnesses and the list is endless. But now, I don't feel finished. I don't feel redundant anymore because I understand my illness. I just needed to have some purpose and value again and to be given some confidence. And I say we all the time because with us, you buy one, get one free. We like to spend time together. It's not all about, as Jayne said, having separate respite. Jayne doesn't want to lie on the beach while I'm in a care home. There's plenty of time for that later on. In the earlier and middle stages, we want to be together. I just want to be moved from my house. I don't want to spend time in my house where I get lost and I get confused and I get anxious. When we're away from home, it normalises dementia. Nobody knows where the bathroom is. No one knows where the bar or the toilets are. And it makes such a difference to the life. It really does normalise dementia for us. Jayne's become my enabler. She's become my cognitive bridge to a normal life, if you can say it's normal. She is there to just look out for me, not care for me. I care for her most of the time, especially when she's had a wife. And it's about looking out for each other. We always looked out for each other. We just needed educating. We just need to support each other. We need to understand dementia. The last couple of years, we've travelled all over the world, talking about our experiences and trying to get people to come out. Try and inspire them to talk and tell them, give them permission to act almost. And it's given us so much value as well. It's work, it's a job again. I don't get paid, but right. And getting out, learning about your condition, meeting like-minded people, peer support is absolutely fantastic. You're not on your own. And that's another thing. Isolation. It gets you out of the house. And not just virtually either. I mean, I open my iPad these days and it's my world. I open it in the morning, I go onto social media and I wave to all my friends. I've got more friends than I've lost. You know? But the good thing is that now I feel more confident and more I've got purpose. My children, it's helped them because they're not sitting there now looking at dad sat in a chair waiting to die. And that's what I did in the beginning. I thought my life was over out of ignorance. My emphysema was more likely to do that. Or when I don't look crossing the road. We picked ourselves up, we supported each other and we became a team again. Because we've always been a team. We decided that we're not going to be patient and carer anymore. We're going to do what we do best, husband and wife. My name's still Chris. I'm still me. I still got 5 children and 2 grandchildren. I'm still me. I'm living with dementia, certainly not dying from it. It is negative, but you also have to see the positives and see the solutions, not just the problems. I'm living with it, my family's living with it. I may have dementia, but it certainly doesn't have me. Thank you.